Who here is thrilled to be working with a bunch of buyers right now? Oh, yeah. Right? I know it's a tough time. We always talk about, because of the market we've been in, right? How to get more sellers, how to get more listings, because we need more inventory. But I think sometimes we fail to remember that working with buyers is just as important. And so I wanted to talk about how we can be efficient and effective in working with buyers so that we can save time to the buyers in finding them a property. We can save ourselves time and not run around like crazy for months and months and months on end. And so I looked at some different studies that, my clicker can work. That NAR and the associations have done about what really matters to buyers in the process of finding real estate to buy. And again, we've talked about this stuff before. A lot of it seems like common sense, but I always like to bring it up to get it back to the forefront of your mind. But figuring out how your buyers like to communicate. So how many of you guys, as you're meeting a buyer for the first time or doing a buyer presentation, have a question where you ask them, hey, what's your preferred communication method? Does anybody do that? I do. So 53% of buyers prefer texting or a different messaging app for communication. 1 in 2 buyers, right, prefer, hey, I don't really want to take a phone call from you, especially if they're under probably 30 or 35 years old, right? We know that millennials love to text. They don't really like to make phone calls. But 33% of people still like traditional phone calls. That might be your older generation. But text message dominates, right? It's easier to answer on your own time. It's easier to answer if maybe you're at work or doing something else. And so as you're meeting with buyers, figure out what their preferred communication style is so that you're communicating with them in the method that they prefer, which is going to increase communication and response times. 13% of people like email, especially obviously for sending documents and records. We know that sending paperwork back and forth is 1,000% easier if you're emailing it as opposed to texting it back and forth. But 13% of people prefer to communicate by email. I know I'm working with a couple right now. I would put them in the millennial category. Most of the time thinking they prefer to communicate by text, but they're 2 parents of a 3-month-old baby. They're working opposite shifts. I think they don't have a lot of time, if I communicate out to one of them, to pass that communication back and forth. And so almost exclusively all of our communication has been in a thread of email. One of them can respond when they're able to. We're all copied on it, so the chain of communication is there. Emails worked really well for them. And then as you're meeting with those buyers, right, are you setting the expectation of how much you're going to communicate with them and how much they expect you to communicate? I think this is another important question to ask people. Hey, as we go through this process, how often do you want to hear from me? Obviously, we're going to be in communication when important things happen. But if we're kind of in that, lull period, how often do you want to talk? 44% of people expect daily updates. That seems like a lot, right? To communicate with every single buyer every single day. But 44% of buyers expect that. 47% of them are satisfied with weekly check-ins. And so ask your buyers, hey, I don't want to bug you, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and in the loop. Here's how I'm going to communicate to you. If there's important stuff going on, right, we're going to talk every single day. If we're in an extended period, I'm going to check in once a week. I do all of my buyer follow-up on Wednesdays or whatever that looks like for you. Does anybody else do that?
I don't, but I feel like I need to be better about it. I actually went through this yesterday. I was like, I have buyers closing next week and I haven't talked to them in a while just because there's nothing to talk about. There's no updates. They have everything they need.
Yep.
All of that. I'm like, probably check in and just say something.
Yeah. And
Riley, sure enough, it prompted them to call me and they're like, hey, we actually have some questions about what do we do?
Yeah. Yep. To Riley's point too, again, we go through these transactions and these processes so often that it seems like I don't need to tell them anything. There's nothing happening, right? But your clients might be sitting on the other end going, wow, I haven't heard from Riley in 2 weeks. We're closing next week. Like, what happens next? And so if you don't know what to say, just call and check in. Hey, how's packing going? When do you guys plan to move into the house? Is there anything I can help you do to set up, utilities or forward your mail or anything that, in that process? Again, be a value add and be part of the process, even when it feels like nothing important is happening to you, because to them, right, this is a big transition. And so as you do this, right, instead of forgetting to call your clients or forgetting, when you need to check in, put together a plan, right? We talk about systemizing everything, and this is no different. Implement your CRM, right? Use it to your advantage, set up, even if it's automated, right? Put together a smart campaign in Bold Trail where if you tag somebody under contract, maybe it sends them an automated text message from you, every 4 days or whatever you want that to look like. But never miss a follow-up with potential buyer, right? There's so much business we're leaving on the table because we fail to follow up. And then setting those clear expectations, right? Establish the response time from the start. Maybe you say to your clients, hey, I am here for you for this entire process, but I want you to know family time is really important to me. And so unless it's an emergency, I don't respond after 7 p.m., but I promise to get back to you first thing in the morning. If your clients know when they can expect to hear from you and expect to get responses from you, right, it's a total transparent process. There's going to be no animosity held because they think you're not responding quick enough. And as you know, people expect us to be working 24/7, but you can take control of your schedule and of your time by setting those expectations up front. And then again, personalizing your communication to each client, right? If you have clients that really love text message, make sure you have a plan in place for that. If you have clients that really love phone calls, make sure you put a recurring calendar, a recurring meeting on your calendar for whatever cadence you set up on and when you need to call them, right? Ask how they prefer to stay in touch and then set the expectation of when they can expect to hear from you. And then this is what I think maybe frustrates a lot of us as we work with buyers. How many times have you guys shifted your schedule around, gone out of your way, scheduled a showing, you get there, and the buyer goes, oh, there's no main level bedroom, this one's not going to work. Right? And you feel like every single person at that house at that time has wasted their time. You have, the buyers have, the sellers have, and you've just worked for nothing because the house wasn't a good fit. Right? 50% of buyers say that they felt like they wasted time viewing unsuitable properties. And 86% of buyers are more likely to view homes if they can see a digital floor plan. Has anybody else been through this? Right, I left an activity earlier last week to rush back to Baraboo to show a house to some clients. We walked in and they go, nope. And we left. Right.
All the time.
We were there less than 30 seconds.
And we could have called.
Yeah.
Ever.
And now I don't want to say, right, like I tell buyers too, as we're going through this process, even if you don't feel like this is probably your dream home, it is good to get into different houses because you're going to realize, hey, there's some aspects of this house that I really like and we should look for in other properties. Or, hey, I thought it was, completely necessary. We had 4 bedrooms, but I actually think now that we saw a 3-bedroom house, we could get away with it. So I'm not saying, right, rule out and refuse to show any house that you think is unsuitable, but have a really open and honest conversation with your buyers on what are total deal breakers, right? If they need a main level bedroom, do not show them houses that don't have it. I've got some clients in Madison, they've got 2 little kids, they're pregnant with their 3rd. So we were looking for 4-bedroom houses, Sun Prairie, Verona, kind of all the surrounding communities. And they'd send me a house and I'd look at the floor plans and I'd go, hey, yep, this is great. It is a 4-bedroom house, but the 3 bedrooms are on the 2nd story and the 4th bedroom's in the basement. And they'd go, oh, you're right. We're not going to put a baby in the basement 3 floors down from us. We don't need to see that one. And so figure out what the deal breakers are for your clients and make sure that you're filtering through the listings with under the lens of, is this suitable for them or is it not? And then use digital tools. On the listing side, this is where you could benefit yourself and your sellers, right? Take high quality professional pictures, try to get video tours done so that you can weed out buyers on the other side, who that house might not be suitable for. We have a free tool called Cubicasa. It was actually the tip of the week in my email that went out yesterday. But you can scan a house and it'll give you digital floor plans. And so maybe your buyers are unsure of a property, the listing doesn't have floor plans. If it's possible and it works with your schedule, set up a quick walkthrough, scan the house, you get it back in less than a day, and use those floor plans to help your buyers make decisions.
Reagan, have you had success using that?
Yeah, I use it on every listing. I actually
Oh,
just
wow.
used it on a listing appointment that I'm trying to get the listing for. And the sellers were like, hey, I understand the assessor's report says there's only 300 square feet in the basement. However, I think there's actually more. And it was kind of this dispute. We were going back and forth on price. And so I said, hey, let me come over. I'm going to scan your house. We'll get the floor plans and we'll send them over to you. And sure enough, right, Cubicasa showed that there was almost 600 square feet in the basement. And it's possible the appraisal or the assessor report is really old and they've added a bedroom down there. And so, you know, don't use it as cold hard fact, but it is a really great tool to be able to present to your clients.
I just use this for a buyer as well, who has a property under contract and they want to do some renovations to it with like floors and paint and things like that. And they're like, hey, do you have the floor plan for this house? And I was like, no, I was built in the 50s. Like, I don't think the seller has that either, but I can go scan it and get us a floor plan. Sure enough, I did.
Yep.
How long? I tried doing one and I failed miserably. And it's been a while though. How long does it take you typically to scan a whole home?
Less than 5 minutes.
Wow.
So it just works on the camera on your phone and you just walk through every room and just kind of pan the walls. Doesn't
Okay.
matter which order you go in, just make sure you get every room. It'll tell you, right, like if you're too close to the wall or if it kind of goes like shaded black if you're too far away. So I literally like walk through every room and then uploaded the free plans give you just the 2D renderings with dimensions. And they're typically emailed to you in less than 24 hours.
Dang. Okay.
So try it at your own house tonight and just
I was gonna say, maybe we should meet at a house and do a training on it.
yeah.
And then for the free version, it's like a 24-hour turnaround time.
Mhm. Yeah, and then there are paid upgrades. You can do 3D renderings, you can do a quicker turnaround time. But yeah, like Riley, I've also used it with buyers when they go under contract and I say, hey, you're gonna want these floor plans at some point. Let me just scan it for you. They think it's a really cool tool. It's a nice value add. I've had buyers use it to try to, you know, figure out furniture or layout of the house that they're going to move into. And so sharing those, you know, tools in with your clients. And then analyze and track which features generate the most interest, right? Look at your listings, right? Try to compare them to other listings that don't have professional photos or other listings that don't have digital floor plans. But like we talked about a few slides ago, right? 87% of buyers prefer to look at listings that have floor plans, right? Because they can do that kind of filtering work ahead of time before wasting everybody's time. And then another thing that buyers really value is guidance on the financing side of this. Again, I think it's easy for us to say, just go talk to your lender, they're the expert in it. But 31% of buyers have been denied for a mortgage before they get approved. And I think it's important to remember that. 1 in 3 people we're working with have had what they could perceive as possibly a negative interaction on the financing side. And maybe it wasn't a full out denial, but it wasn't an approval at the level that they want to go buy a house at. Almost 20% of buyers found their lender through an agent recommendation. And so there's a huge opportunity to increase your lender referrals, right? Find a lender you really like, work with them, become a team together, and use it to generate referrals back and forth. But your financing guidance, right, significantly impacts client success. Again, I don't know how many of you have worked with a buyer and maybe they show up with a pre-approval letter from a lender you don't know. And you think, this is great. I'm glad you've done this work ahead of time. But hey, my lender partner, I know they have a lot of different programs and benefits that could help you get, you know, better terms or more down payment assistance or things like that. And so you can really impact the success that your buyers have by making sure that they're paired up with a lender that you trust and that you know is going to give your clients the same level of high service. And the last piece of this, right? The last thing that, not the last, but one of the fourth thing that buyers really appreciated from their agent was negotiation. Buyers don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what they can and can't do as far as negotiation in offer situations. And so 58% of buyers valued their help with their offer details. Right? Again, how many times have you sat down with a buyer and gone, all right, what do you want to offer on this house? And they go, I don't know. What should I? Right? The majority of buyers want your expertise, they want your guidance, they want your recommendation on how to structure their offer so that they can get an accepted offer on a property. 44% of them appreciated assistance with negotiations. And again, this is where you can really elevate your game and become the expert that your buyers are looking for. Make sure you know the markets, make sure you know what's happening in specific neighborhoods you're working. Know the contracts in and out, right? We're the ones that look at these 12, 15-page legal documents all the time. Our buyers have no idea what this stuff is saying. And so the better that you can communicate the complexity of our contracts to your buyers, the more they're going to trust you to lead them in the right direction. Figure out, right, what are the solutions that benefit not only the buyers, but also the sellers? What are those win-win outcomes that you can help negotiate? I think, right, things like if you're going to have an inspection on a house, explaining to your buyers, hey, you're going to have an inspection. Here's what's going to happen after that, right? This will become a point of negotiation one way or another. And so guiding them through how to negotiate professionally and successfully is of huge value and importance to buyers. Also, I think mastering time and tone. How many times have you guys worked with an agent on the other side who you say, I know this agent is making it so much more difficult for their clients than they have to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I had a nightmare of a deal last year where the agent on I had the listing, but the buyer's agent was making the transaction so hard, so difficult, and so negative. And the seller and the buyer had actually met at the inspection and exchanged numbers. And they were chatting back and forth, unbeknownst to me on the back end. And the buyer was saying to the seller, I really wish we wouldn't have worked with this agent. Like, we don't think this stuff is a big deal, but she's calling us all the time. She's mad, she's frustrated, and we don't really know what's going on. And so, again, not internalizing and taking personal the negotiation between the buyer and the seller is a huge way to stay calm in situations and to help your buyers work through, any sort of situation and not be the one to ruin it for your clients or for the sellers or for everybody involved. Just that's my PSA to be a good agent, and don't make things harder or more emotional than they have to be. And so this is really where you can set yourself apart from other agents. This is your competitive advantage, right? Step up your communication game and step it up in a way that your buyers or your clients want to be communicated with. Use the digital tools like Cubicasa that other agents aren't doing, right? Again, this is a way to give yourself a step up. Make sure you have a trusted lender partner or understand the different lenders you work with, what they can offer your buyers, right? It's not a one size fits all. We all know that. And so having a lender partner that's really great with first-time home buyers who might have low credit scores, or high-end buyers who are taking out jumbo loans, or buyers who are taking out rural properties, right? Understand the intricacies of what buyers are looking for on the financing side and making sure that you're pairing them up with a trusted lender that's a good fit for the situation they're in. And then become a master negotiator, right? There's tons of trainings, there's certifications you can get out there. But your skilled advocacy for your clients is a way that you can set yourself apart from the other agents who are just going through the motions, right? Become the expert, deliver measurable value to your clients. And I promise you, not only is it going to make you a better agent, which is going to increase your repeat and referral business, but it's going to make your buyers' time from, starting to look to accept an offer so much more efficient and more successful for everybody involved. So I know sometimes it's hard to get, excited about working with a bunch of buyers, especially in this market, but there's a way to make it successful for everybody without just spending all your nights and weekends running around showing houses that aren't good fits to buyers who can't afford to buy them anyways. Buyers matter too. It's hard. In this market especially, sometimes we want to forget about them or we don't want to generate buyer leads because why should I go generate, 20 more buyers when there's nothing to sell them? But the truth of the matter is there are still listings, they are still getting sold, somebody's buying them. And so it's up to you whether or not you want to take the opportunity to be the agent on the other side.
Good advice.
I'm gonna go call my buyers.
Okay.
Hey, Reagan,
Yep.
when you're talking and stuff, for people in Sauk County, don't forget about USDA direct loans. Reagan, I meant to tell you about that. Trying to get someone in a house. I closed one last year. If they're qualified, they subsidize the interest rate. They help them get down payment assistance. It's USDA Rural Development out of Stevens Point, and I've got the contact information if anybody wants it. It's amazing. They can buy more of a house than they ever thought they could.
Yeah, can you drop that in the RP Facebook group?
Sure. You
And
bet.
that's just
It won't-
Sauk County.
Well, probably Sauk, Columbia, Juneau. Dane County, I don't think offers it. But yeah, I'll put it in there and anybody that has those buyers, it's a really, really good program.
Awesome. That's good to know. And the lender is direct through that program?
Yes, you go directly through USDA. There is no lender involved in the middle.
Okay.
So I can't remember what her interest rate was, but I was
low.
shocked. It was really low. She was able to buy a $285,000 house and she's a single mom with, I think, 4 kids, probably makes 60,000 a year
Awesome.
because the payment's so low. So everybody keep that in mind. I'll drop it in the Facebook group.
Cool. Thank you for that. Thank you everybody for showing up today. I appreciate you guys. Again, free Mallards game tomorrow through Rascal. I'll drop it that the Facebook page as well. Would love